Welcome to the DV Show.
So how this book started was you basically you're a person who teaches starving artists how to feed themselves. And how did you get involved in this? What is this all about? Give me more information.
All right. Well, basically what happened was, I've been freelancing for the past 20 somewhat years. And, I started dabbling in it mainly because I had a job at the New York City Technical College. And I was right at the end of it was a work study program. So when the funds run out, you're out. You have to find a new job. So,
Whoops.
Yeah, right. So I loved the job and, working with everybody was fantastic. But then they told me, hey, look, you know what? The funds are about to run up. And within the next 2 months, we're going to have to let you go. So I was like, oh, man, I really need this money to pay for school and all these other supplies and stuff. So, there was one of my coworkers who she was just a huge fan of my work. Up until this point, I had never sold any of my work. It just wasn't something I was interested in doing. I just did it for fun.
It's like a hobby kind of thing.
Yeah, it was a hobby. It was a hobby. So I thought to myself, I was like, man, she's such a fan of my work. I wonder if she's willing to pay for it. So I created something at home, really nice. I airbrushed it, color pencil. And then the next day when I got to the office, I just set it up right next to my computer. And I put it so that no matter where you walked in that area, you were going to see this drawing. Everybody commented, oh, that's beautiful. I love it. I was like, well, I can create one just like that for you and customize it with your name and blah, blah, blah. I gave them the sales pitch.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I started selling these customized airbrush pieces to first just the people in my office. And then one of the secretary, Lucy Troya, I'm still in touch with her today on Facebook. She said, listen, I'm going to introduce you to the head of the, I forgot what department it was. It was like not human resources. It was hospitality management.
Okay.
And he's going to love your work and he's going to want to place an order. So this was like my first real introduction to freelancing.
Yeah. So you got the bug, you got the
man,
obsession.
Exactly. And it just turned into, me learning and similar to my brother Edwin, asking tons and tons of questions because in the process, I ended up getting ripped off so many times and just, inked some really bad deals. Didn't really know how to
ripped off as far as financially or what
well,
do you mean?
ripped off financially, ripped off whereas my work was copied and used in other places. And just a lot of things that I didn't know about how to protect yourself as an artist, trials and errors. And so through all of that, it's really what strengthened me as an individual, one, and two, as an artist, because I started to become more aware of what my value was. And even if it was like you reaching out to me and saying, hey, I would love for you to design this project and we have $1,000. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, all right, well, first I need to think about how long it's going to take. Second, I need to think about, what are you going to use this for? Will this have multiple applications for you? Or is it just a one-shot deal?
Right.
So then I start factoring in all these things. $1,000 sounds very, very small to me, and I'm going to have to counter that offer and tell you, well, hey, you know what? For this project, I'm going to have to charge you $10,000.
Whoa.
Based on X, Y, and Z. But so you see your response was, whoa, and how you jumped at that response.
Yeah.
When you're just starting out as a freelancer and somebody asks you, hey, what is your rate? And you give them a rate and they respond by saying, whoa, hey, that's too expensive. In the beginning, you get kind of afraid and like that throws you off guard. Yeah. So immediately you go into the mode of, well, what's affordable for you? What works with your budget? I'll work with you. But as you gain more experience, you're like, wait a minute, you want me. I don't want you.
Exactly.
So what is this worth to you? Yes,
exactly.
You're going to spend $10,000 on this, but how much is that going to generate for you in the long run? You start to build your confidence. And that, I think, was one of the things that this book, I really wanted to focus on, giving freelancers, just different examples of things that they can do to help themselves when they're in that situation.
So how much do you address this business part of it in your book, and what specific areas do you address?
Well, let me see. I have the book here. I mean,
This
it's
thing looks
pretty
big.
much,
Hold it up, David. Let me see it.
it's actually, it's only 162 pages.
Yeah, it's
So
to
it's
the
not,
point.
it's quick and to the point. And I'm actually working on a second edition because from January 2020 till now, there have been so many new things that I've learned that I've been able to apply that, I grew into another person. I basically, COVID transformed me into another person because of, when COVID hit, Brian, oh man, this thing destroyed me. It destroyed me.
Destroyed me too. Destroyed everyone.
Man.
And it's like, okay, what do I do now? If I just lost my job, what am I going to do next?
What are you going to do? Exactly.
I mean, I don't know how to freelance. I don't know how to hustle. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to go to Uber, which is another whole problem. Hello.
I know. Yeah. So I had to figure a lot of things out. Basically, the majority of my clientele were colleges and universities. And so they all shut down. And just from like 1 month to the next, I lost almost $15,000 just from, because I had a lot of speaking engagements and book signings and like I had so many activities going on, but all of it was canceled. So, I spent a couple of days just, being depressed and trying to figure out like, now what, so one of the things that I did sort of just to uplift me first. I wasn't doing it because I was like, hey, I want to help out the art community. It was because I was feeling down and I needed to get back up. So I started talking to other artists and other, DJs, musicians, other creative people, and just asking them, like, how has this affected your business? How has it changed the way you do business? And like, what are you doing now? And I turned it into a series of Zoom interviews. Oh, cool. And I did for 1 week. I interviewed 10 artists or creative people. And man, Brian, I felt like halfway into it, I was just like supercharged. I was like ready to go.
All right, so share this with us. Where's the link to this? Can we see this?
I have to put all of them back up. I took them down because I was redoing my website, but I'll send you the link once I get them up.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
And
so this was inspirational kind of stuff.
This was very inspirational, and I ended up sharing it with some folks who were equally inspired by it. There is a writer out here at the LA Weekly, and I interviewed her, and she was just like, she was dropping gems. Everybody pretty much is dropping some gems, and afterwards, I ended up getting the attention of, News One, Spectrum News.
Okay, yeah.
And they did a story on me and how I used the COVID situation to sort of elevate myself and other artists during this time. And it was like, that wasn't what I was trying to do, but I liked their angle. So I was like, yeah, we'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's the path I'll follow from now on.
Yeah, but during that path, it made me realize something. It made me realize that not only do we have the ability to impact people through our artwork, we also have the ability to impact people just through words, just through speaking.
Yeah, it's true.
And I was able to put some headphones on and get the mic and start talking to some artists and inspire them and, give them some different creative ideas of things they can do right now to help their chances out. And I turned into a speaker, and then I started doing these like virtual workshops for different schools. I just finished doing one for the School of Visual Arts last week, which was amazing. And today, Brian, oh my goodness.
So you're being blessed, my friend.
I am. I was able to turn the lemons into lemonade, so to speak.
That's right.
Yeah,
because this COVID is horrible. This is
man,
it's discouraging everyone.
Yeah.
And in the creative community that I'm surrounded by, the whole deal is online freelancing, and it's so competitive now because everyone's out of work. So how do you stick out? I mean, what do you do? I mean, what kind of inspiration did you hear in relationship to that kind of response from the creative community? It's like competitive. I'm not going to do anything.
I know. I think that was actually one of the biggest challenges is to think that, okay, well, everybody's home now and everybody's, fighting for the same job. How do you stand out? And I think the first thing that I like to remind artists of is to take it back a notch. Before you start putting yourself out there, start sort of reevaluating yourself, reevaluating your skill sets, your strengths. What is it that you love to do? What's your why, so to speak? You know, what is your purpose as an artist? You know, and as you start to answer these questions, it puts you in a different position now, because for me, as an artist, I'm all about promoting diversity and inclusion and discussions of equality as it relates to art and animation. Because for me, growing up, all of the characters in the movies were white. You know, and it wasn't a big deal when I was younger, but now as an adult, I'm like, holy smokes, that was pretty crazy. You know, to the point that as an artist, I felt that my portfolio would not be strong enough or would not be taken seriously if I had a cast of Black characters or Latino characters or multicultural characters. I felt like my portfolio had to have white characters in order for it to be, you know, seriously taken.
Seriously.
This is part of a problem that I think many of us.
Frustrates me a little bit. That frustrates
me. It is, you know, and it frustrated me. And there was something that snapped me out of it, you know, and it was a job interview that I had at the Harlem YMCA. And it was for an art coordinator position. I knew I had this job in the bag. I was like, I got this. You know, I was super confident. Oh, no. And he's looking at my portfolio. What happened? He's looking at the portfolio and he had the poker face on. He was like super serious. And I'm like, oh, that ain't good. You know? And then after he finishes, you know, he flips the last page. He looks at me and he goes, it was a good portfolio, but I have one question for you. He's like, did you draw all of these? I was like, yeah, that's everything in there is my work. I did everything in there. He's like, how come all the characters are white?
There's no diversity.
I was like, oh, you know, and so I couldn't answer that question. You know, I really couldn't. And it took me several years before I can really think about why that was. And it was because I felt a little bit ashamed of, well, not ashamed, but I felt kind of scared to reflect myself in my own work. My work did not even reflect me.
Wow, that's
you know,
not
and
cool.
It isn't cool. And I think part of the problem for me was I never had teachers of color in the arts up until I got to the School of Visual Arts. And it was the first time I had a teacher of color.
So what year we talking? So what's the span of time there that you finally?
Man. Okay, so I've been drawing. Let me see. I should say seriously, I started drawing at about elementary school, like 6th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. So that's like 80s. And then 1997 was the year I had the job interview at the Harlem YMCA. So I was 20 years old, 1997. So for 20 years, I had been just drawing white characters. After that interview, everything that I drew was of color, everything, because it made me realize that I'm not even confident about who I am because I'm not reflecting it in my own work. So if at 20 years old, Brian, if I would have passed away at 20 years old and somebody would have said, hey, look, you know what? Let's do an art show on all of the work of David Heredia. It would have just been white characters. You would have thought I was a white guy.
Because you had to be, because you were afraid. That's you know, I've never heard of that. I'm a communications professional, David, and to me, diversity means you're a better communicator.
Yeah.
You know, definitely. And in your field, I would never even imagine that would happen. Even, you know, I mean, even today in today's climate, it's kind of sad everything that's going on. I mean, it affects everything.
Yeah,
and it's you know, it's not. But I'm glad that you had this little epiphany, so to speak. This little thing, that kind of aha moment that made you so successful. So your website, what is this all about? Were you once in the military? Are you a fellow Army man or Marine?
No. So what happened was this: my website, Heroes of Color, was born again out of frustration. This was 2015 now.
Anger is a powerful thing, man.
It sure is. If you can use it to your advantage.
It's a motivator.
It absolutely is. 2015, I had all 3 kids now. Yeah, all 3 of my children were born 2015. So they were in school. And while they were in school, I started paying attention to some of the stuff they were learning. And I was just realizing, like, oh my God, these kids are learning the same thing I learned when I was in school. And that's a problem because nothing has changed. And I just felt like as a parent, I wanted to make sure that I was including a lot of cultural education, which I understand. It's not the job school to teach them about that, but it wouldn't hurt to, sort of
this was a public school, right?
Public school. Okay, public school. So I'm thinking, they're still learning about Columbus, but they're not learning everything about him that he did. They're just highlighting certain things. I'm like, well, how about some of these other people?
Right.
So anyway, I decided, let me start looking at some influential people that I can sort of share stories with my kids about, things that they've done, some obstacles they've had to overcome. And it was right around that time that, my son was asking me questions about comic books and superheroes and, were there any comic book heroes that were dark skinned? Were there any Spanish superheroes? And I was like, man, there's tons of them, So I actually started looking for some and I couldn't find any. And I was like, yeah, this is crazy. So I found about 2 or 3 Black superheroes that were like really Black superheroes. Not because, Marvel has done a thing now where they're starting to change. Yeah. Like Nick Fury was originally a white character, but they turned him into Sam Jackson for the movies. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff like that has happened, which is cool.
Black Panther's my favorite, by the way. One of them.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Black Panther's badass. I have the soundtrack and I listen to it in my car on the way to work to kind of empower me a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, check that out. I got to check it out now.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
So I started looking into heroes and I just Googled, superheroes of color. And that's where the name Heroes of Color came from, because I started getting back names of real people who had done real things. And just real this one group, real heroes. This one group that stood out to me was the Harlem Hellfighters, which was an all-Black military unit that fought in World War I. And their story was just absolutely remarkable. And this really kicked off to me something where I felt like, holy smokes, I've been cheated out of my, history, education in school, because these guys were phenomenal, yet I've never heard of them. You've heard of General Patton, of course, and you've heard of some of these Schwarzkopf and all these other guys, which is cool, but
no heroes of color.
No heroes of color. So I did that first episode. It was a 3-minute episode. And this one wasn't really intended for my young kids, because there was a scene in there that's very, very gruesome in the sense that, and I debated, Brian, whether or not I should add it or not, but I felt like at the end, I felt like it was a necessary part of the story.
Now, how old is your child at this time right now? How old?
2 years old.
Okay.
3 years old. And the other one was like 1 or something.
Okay.
Or barely even, something like that. I'm bad with the dates, so sorry.
Yeah, so am I.
But, they're my kids.
Ask me when my kid's birthday is. I'm like, I have to look. I have to look at my sticky note.
Yeah, ask the wife. She knows. No, but so there's one scene in particular. The narrator says that a lot of the Black soldiers joined the military in the hopes that it would restore their civil rights at home, because they had no rights. And ironically, they ended up pledging allegiance to a country who openly lynched Black people. And when he says that part in the line, I draw, 3 people being lynched.
Okay.
So that was tough to see that, right?
Yeah.
But
in a sense, you have to. But you have to.
You can't hide it. And I think that's when another aha moment happened to me, because I was like, race is such a big issue in this country.
Unfortunately,
that teachers, educators would rather not talk about it and confront it in the hopes that it would just kind of go away than to actually confront it.
True.
So for me, this was like, oh, we need to start addressing these things. We need to start talking about these things. That's right. I used the creative approach. One of the workshops that I did at the School of Visual Arts. This was maybe like a month ago. It was titled "Using Your Creative Space to Talk About Race," and this one was awesome. I'm going to put that one online too, because that we recorded that one.
Can I get a link to that one?
Yeah, I'll get you a link to that one. That was awesome.
Cool. I'd like to watch that.
And it was empowering, I think, for artists, because it helped put back in their hands, because not everybody was out in the street protesting. I couldn't go out there in the streets and protest. Just my schedule was crazy. My kids were scared. They were like, we don't want you to go out there and, end up becoming a statistic. So I was like, there are other ways that you can protest. Creative people have the best platform to do that.
That's right.
So I was sort of sharing some ideas on how they can use their art to creatively protest,
That's awesome.
And yeah, man, so this year has been an incredible year, just in terms of, I feel like this book has helped sort of push me into the stage now of helping others, and really giving back. And I love it.
And in turn, help comes back to you.
And it comes back. Yep. The best way to get help is to give help.
That's exactly right. So the Freelance Hustle, so you're sharing 20 years of your freelance experience. And what's really cool about this book too is, as I'm reading on Amazon.com, I don't know, I'll probably put a link to Amazon, but I think maybe they probably take some money away from you. So maybe we should put a direct link if they can order from you.
Yeah, direct link is actually going to be off the freelancehustle.co.
Okay. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And what's really cool about this book is, I guess, that you have some kind of animated videos that go along with it, immersive experiences.
Check this out. Let me see if I can just quickly demonstrate one to you. So typically what it is it's just like, these things, right? The QR codes.
Yes.
So you pop your phone over it, and then it'll like send you to a link or check out some videos. But there's this one feature that I really like. And that's a picture of my business card. Okay. And this section is, let me see, the title is 101 Killer Marketing Tactics. So this is idea number 30. Now, let's say, for example, you have the elevator pitch moment. Rarely do we actually have those, but if you do have one, hold on, let me just open up this app. This is a really cool one. So what you do is, if you're an animator, or if you're, you have a TV show, whatever, and you tell them, hey, look, this is. Do I
have to scan my phone over that, or what?
No, I'm going to show you right now.
All right, cool. You're building the anticipation here.
All right. So I say I'm an animator, right? And I do a lot of I have a series which highlights the achievements of people of color. And I have a trailer if you're interested in checking it out.
We're going to check everything out. We're
and
just going to expose you.
This is my elevator pitch moment, right? So you tell me, well, sorry, Dave, I have no time. This is my stop. Okay, no problem. Here, grab my card. And when you get an opportunity, hover your phone over it. And then this is what's going to happen. Tell me if you see my phone.
Come on.
You seeing this?
Come on. That's awesome.
It's crazy.
That's awesome. How the hell did you do that? That's awesome. That's awesome. All right.
So there's a lot of those little gems in the book.
Show here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's very cool. Very, very cool. All right, your book is what?
Go
ahead.
The Freelance Hustle. You can get it on the website is thefreelancehustle.co, and I share tons and tons of great ideas on how you can better market yourself. Also, just things on how you can start basically identifying who you are as an artist in terms of the services that you offer, pinpointing who the best clients could be based on what it is that you offer, where you can find these clients. It's a lot of self-evaluation, which is something
which is much needed right now.
Much needed
right now, even in myself. So you've become a little bit of inspiration during this interview.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm also gonna buy your book, Little Heroes of Color, 50 Who Made a Big Difference, which is what you're talking about here. So, I have children of my own, and I think it's important to include, everything that this planet has to offer, and not exclude, because art is freedom of expression. And it should not be.
It should be anyways.
It should be. Exactly. So your book is what? It's on Amazon. It's like $20 or something like that.
Yeah. The Freelance Hustle you can get from the freelancehustle.co, but the Little Heroes of Color book, you can't get that off my website. You have to get that off either Barnes and Nobles, Scholastic, or Target. And yeah, it's on Amazon as well.
All right. Keep it up, David. Keep what you're doing
so
up.
much, Brian.
And I'm in full support of you, my friend.
I appreciate that so much.
And we'll put a link to your stuff in the show notes, and I'll promote your stuff as much as I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, tell your brother I said hello.
I definitely will. I'll ask him if he has any more questions for you.
All right.
Video production just got easier. The DV Show.